We move this story along. There's no easy way to talk to our kids about this kind of violence. It is a tough conversation, but it's one more and more parents, Andrea and Taurus, are realizing that they're going to need to have often and early. With that being said, joining us now is Taurus Sanders. He is a licensed professional counselor, trauma expert. Thank you for having this tough conversation with us. We know the idea of a 14-year-old being gunned down is something that is not easily digestible by anybody. I don't care what your walk in life is. What do you say to our viewers who are just watching every day and saying, when will this kind of violence against children end?
I think it's a very sobering situation. Unfortunately, on the anniversary, 3-year anniversary of George Floyd's death as well. So the timing of this is, it's unfortunate, and I think people are still trying to heal from other situations like George Floyd and many others. And unfortunately, this just causes the healing process to be prolonged. And we're still searching for answers for a solution. So I think in the immediacy, we need to identify what our emotions are, what our feelings are, and really be honest about that.
Let me ask you, Taurus, if this is a wound that doesn't heal but almost keeps getting reopened,
Yes.
is what it kind of feels like. How do you start to move on or even attempt to pick yourself up and keep going when, unfortunately, in the news every day it seems to be something different when it comes to gun violence as well?
I think, being honest about what the real answers to the problems are is inconvenient, and it's a hard thing to really acknowledge. And I think that's kind of where we're stuck. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of blame and finger pointing, but I think we're pretty clear about what the problems are, and how we are not necessarily helping our children to succeed as best in life. And I think this is another example. How did we, and I mean we collectively, how did we fail this child that lost his life, and how we can help others like him to not be in a situation like this, and to be able to handle situations that are tough when you're dealing with someone that may not understand you or willing to understand you.
You come from an interesting perspective. Not only are you a licensed counselor, but you also have a background in law enforcement.
Yes.
You were a police officer for
Correct.
How many years?
Over 14 years.
Over 14 years. So you understand both ends
Yes.
of that spectrum. If there's one thing you can say to parents tonight who have sons, I've got 3 girls, so I don't know what you say to someone who has a little black boy. What do you say as a member of law enforcement, a former member of law enforcement, and as a licensed counselor? What's that one thing we need to make sure our boys understand every day?
Well, I think first and foremost is the self-respect. And I think, when a person has self-respect and that carries and projects, it really communicates to another person, hopefully, to also reciprocate that. I think the other part, as far as the legal, is being aware of what your rights are. And even as kids, they need to be aware of that. I remember going through high school, there was a course where we were taught like basic law, and how do we respect police, how do we respect people of authority, teachers and whatnot. I think those are important conversations, but also be very strategic and very purposeful about having those conversations when you deal with law enforcement. What do you say, what do you don't say, what do you do and what you don't do, in order for that to go well.
To any kids watching right now that feel like they're afraid to simply go outside, simply go in their neighborhoods, go in their parks, go in their convenience stores, what do parents tell them tonight to feel safe emotionally?
Well, I think, we should and we must go on with our lives as normal. Being aware, obviously, this is situational awareness that this is fresh. We're still trying to figure out what happened. And obviously, there's the cry for justice. But, justice happens on both sides, not only against the offender, but also on for the victim's family as well. How does that really look? And we don't know yet. I think also in part of that is how can we come together, because it's not just about, this family's child. This is about all of our children.
Yeah.
This is a public place, a convenience store. But I think just being mindful and just going about as normal as possible.